Hello everyone and welcome to our weekly Wednesday reflection. Today I'd like to look at Jesus the Good Shepherd, and our reading comes from John 10 verses 11 to 18. I am the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is the hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the Good Shepherd. I know my sheep and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheepfold. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life, only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father. I am the Good Shepherd. What wonderful words. Shepherds and sheep imagery are throughout the Bible. One of the most memorable is Psalm 23. It is not just Christians who know and like this psalm. Many who would not class themselves as Christians know it and can recite it just like they can the traditional Lord's Prayer. It is often used and requested at funerals as it brings a sense of comfort and peace to the believer and the non-believer alike. And it is this imagery that is seen in our John reading today. Shepherds and sheep were everywhere in Jesus' time, and the imagery used was easy to see and understand. Perhaps this imagery for the 21st century is not quite so obvious, but we can still get a sense of its significance. In ancient Israel, sheep and shepherds were used to describe the relationship of God and his people. Good leaders were shepherds of the people. In John 9, which is just before our passage today, we see Jesus healing a man who was born blind. The Pharisees investigate the healing as it took place on the Sabbath. They ask the man's parents some questions, but they are too scared of the Pharisees to answer and say that their son is old enough to answer for himself. The man tells the Pharisees all that has taken place. He ends by saying, if this man, Jesus, was not from God, he could do nothing. The Pharisees then reply by saying that the man was steeped in sin since before birth and threw him out. The Pharisees revealed themselves not to be good leaders at all. They were thinking of self, their own wants and agendas, with no understanding or love. The leaders rejected the blind man, destroying his hopes of life within their community. But Jesus gave him new life of physical sight and faith. Jesus shows us what it means to be a good leader, what it means to be a good shepherd of the people. The Good Shepherd not only gives life instead of stealing it, the life he gives is his own, laid down for the sake of his sheep. The Good Shepherd knows each one of his sheep, and his sheep know him. Shepherds called their sheep out of the fold by their name, and the flock followed his voice. The Greek word for church literally means called out. Each of us are called out. Jesus' knowledge of his sheep is rooted in his knowledge of his Father and his Father knowing him as his Son. And because of the nature of God's self-giving love, the Good Shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. Let's just take that in for a moment and digest it. The shepherd knows his sheep. He knows each of us and we know him. And because of his self-giving love, has laid down his life for us. What an amazing thing. He laid his life down for us. What's even more amazing is that God's love is universal. It's not just for us here listening to this reflection. It's not just for the Church of England flock. It is universal. So the shepherd must also be concerned for other sheep, not in the fold, who will also hear his voice and be brought together in one flock. This is in total contrast to the religious leaders concerned to maintain their pure group and throw the blind man out. The Good Shepherd wants to include all people. I wonder, do we as a church, as Christians, welcome all people, no matter who they are or where they come from? Or are we sometimes like the Pharisees? We like what we know, what we are used to. People that are like us, have the same interests as us, believe the same things as us. Do we seek the lost and the afraid like Jesus did? I'm not sure if any of you saw the Panorama programme last week on the BBC with the title, Is the Church Racist? It was a difficult watch. If you did, you would have seen that the Church of England has a long way to go before all are loved and brought into the flock. And if you didn't get to see it, I would really encourage you to try and get it on catch up and see what you think after watching it. I read a Bible reflection a couple of weeks ago which questioned whether I smelt like my sheep. A very strange thing to read. It questioned whether I really knew the people where I lived. Do they know me? At my ordination, the charge given to me and all those ordained is as servant and shepherd. Set the Good Shepherd always before you as a pattern of your calling, to search for his children in the wilderness of this world's temptations. The treasure now to be entrusted to you is Christ's own flock. Do I truly know the people where I live? Do I make a conscious effort to get to know the people of Snodland? My answer was, well, I've tried hard, but what with COVID, it's been tough. My aim is that as the restrictions are eased, I will get to know all of you better and our community as a whole. This reflection was not written especially for those of us who are ordained. This is a huge challenge for each one of us. Whether we are an archbishop, a Bible study leader, a minister, a welcomer at the door, making the teas and coffees after a church service, or even visiting an elderly neighbour. We must all smell like our sheep. We must live by the example and love of the Good Shepherd and how the Good Shepherd loves us. If we strive to do this, then we will welcome everyone. We will seek the lost and the lonely, the believer and the non-believer, as we strive to be one flock for Jesus. It is a really tough thing to do, but Jesus is our Good Shepherd, and with his good example, his leadership and his love for all, we can only do that, and we will become those who welcome everyone. Let's end with a prayer, and this is the collect for this week, the special prayer. Risen Christ, faithful shepherd of your Father's sheep, teach us to hear your voice and to follow your command, that all your people may be gathered into one flock to the glory of God the Father. Amen. And I do hope that you have a good week. And I do pray that Jesus, the Good Shepherd, goes before you in all you do this week. Amen.